Well, before we get into anything late night from you, you made that very apparent on the Instagram story, Walker Buehler, on Saturday night. Instead of going out hitting the town, Old Town Scottsdale is a great place. You opted to watch your teammates in Korea. What's the word there? How are you handling this week? Are you adjusting your sleep schedule entirely, or are you going to rely on the condensed game? What's the word?
No, I think tonight's game 3 a.m. start is that's a little far fetched, but no, watch last night. They started at 8 o'clock or whatever, which is noon over there. So they're playing in the future.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where it's really unique to be able to tune in and watch. But I think the only time where I felt like people were really going to stay up till 3 a.m. for a game was when we were in COVID and the KBO was going on.
Yeah.
And we were just so desperate for baseball. But it's tough once it gets after like 2 or 3. Do you feel like watching the game yesterday, it still feels like spring training, or did it start to? I know it's an exhibition, but did it feel like it was kind of inching towards the real thing, or is it just is it not really going to be the real thing until it is?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some more energy in that ballpark. You could hear it on TV, and there's the song and dance to the way they play over there. And yeah, Freddie hits a homer in the first inning, and it feels like you're kind of off and rolling, right? So, I think it's kind of funny we're playing the Padres. The stadium and the look of it reminds me so much of Texas when we were in COVID. So,
Right.
We played them and had a pretty intense series against them. So, kind of fitting, I guess.
So help Aram make a decision, because Peter's here too. We are blessed with a 6 a.m. first pitch on Wednesday and Thursday instead of 3 a.m. Pacific.
Yep.
You're in Arizona still, and we'll get into that in a moment. But Peter and I have both confirmed that we'll get up at 6 a.m. Aram is like, I really like sleeping. What do you do if you're Aram?
I mean, it is, it's officially opening day of the MLB season. It's a just baseball podcast, some might say.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah. I'm not a morning guy. I want to watch it. I know I'll end up getting up, but I gotta like drag my feet and kind of complain about it a little bit. But I think it's a real.
I can't believe you haven't convinced him to just record it, set back about 2 hours. So then you started at 8. It's just a kind of a mutual agreed upon that we don't open the phones till halfway through the game.
So, okay, now let me ask you, how plausible is that in 2024 for 3 people that have a crippling baseball Twitter addiction?
Well, seeing as there's one game,
yeah,
it's 6 a.m. So
you'll be sleeping.
The old 8 a.m. game. Yeah,
none of the spring training games have gone off yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think there's logical arguments against what you're saying.
Yep.
I applaud the sacrifice to wake up at 6 a.m.
Yeah. But there are easier ways to do it.
So you just asked him to convince me.
I think Aram is not using his strongest arguments.
Okay.
Yes.
And it seems like you are arguing on behalf of him, and he owes you a beer now. So that's
it was 2-on-1, so I had to pick a side.
I get it. I see what side you chose.
You're not even going to be awake. You just sleep till 8, wake up at 8. You don't use Twitter in your sleep. Walker's got a great point there. And we just watch the game immediately.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think the 2-hour delay is a plausible compromise.
I think that's fair, and we will talk about it, and I'm sure that's going to be the end result. So we're good to go. What's the Arizona crew going to be up to? So we were talking right before we hit the record button. You're still in Arizona. Obviously, you're not ramped up to in-game action just yet. James Paxton is not there either. Brusdar Graterol is not there. And you mentioned Emmett Sheehan too. And this is all public information. It was on the travel roster and all that. What does your guys' day-to-day look like right now when the entire team's away? Because obviously that's got to be a unique circumstance considering you've spent the last month and change prepping with the entire team around.
You kind of team leaves and whatever when they go to spring or when they go to LA or if they go to Korea, it doesn't really matter. Everyone leaves and we kind of revert back to kind of the rehab schedule, right? Which is a little bit more individualized, kind of show up when you get up and get your stuff done. And, there's just less people and quiet and, go play catch. You're kind of by yourself and it's just kind of a different different vibe, a lot more individual, obviously, but you still got a little crew there and some guys that are rehabbing kind of long term as well. So, there's 6 of us floating around or 8 of us floating around, whatever it is. And yeah, super similar to kind of last summer for me, but looking forward to not having to do it for another 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
Are the backfields like totally empty now since most of the
No,
team is
but
gone?
the minor league side is still full go, right? Because they're opening on schedule, so the minor league side is still kind of ripping and running. But our side, we have 2 different kind of clubhouses. Some places it's one big thing where there's kind of 2 different sides to it. Ours is 2 completely different buildings, and so they're ripping over there, and we just kind of have our locker room that normally has 60 guys in there for 6 or 8 guys.
What about from like a fan perspective? Because I know we talked about it a little bit on the show, but I really even couldn't appreciate it until I got out there to Camelback Ranch and just saw how absurd the spectacle is.
Yep.
Is it still buzzing with fans a little bit, or is it a lot more quiet now that the team's gone? I'm sure it was awesome to see all the fans, but at the same time, it's probably nice to just be able to walk, get your work in, and not have to walk through thousands of people. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, there's some people floating around. I know a lot of the guys that hunt autographs still try and get over there on the minor league side and get kind of the prospects and stuff like that. And obviously, most of us have dealt with that at some point of our careers. But yeah, way less people. Obviously, Shohei's not here anymore. Loto's not here anymore. So yeah, it's a lot more calm.
So autographs have been a hot button topic recently, and I want to have you kind of shed light on why it's bad to judge guys out of context. I saw a video of Connor Phillips, who's one of the top prospects in the Reds organization, not sign a baseball. He walked by, they tweeted out, and everybody's like, oh, bad guy. That's not true. Had a chance to sit down with Connor for about 15 minutes last year.
Yeah.
He's a very nice guy, and I know he typically probably is an autograph signer. Can you shed some light on the context behind guys why they may not be signing autographs all the freaking time?
Yeah, so I'll take you through kind of the way I try and approach it, and this is kind of a few years of doing it.
Yeah.
And so for me, I don't like to sign. So we'll go and play catch, right? And so I don't sign on the way out ever because we have schedules and whatever. So I'll go out throw if I have to go throw somewhere else. So my bullpen days or days that I'm pitching or in a live or whatever may be in spring training, those days I'm largely not going to sign. So the other days I typically have every year I kind of establish a number that I will sign per day.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's 5 to 7. Usually I'm trying to whatever kid like makes the most compelling, like yell at you or whatever. Oh, so Aram can tell you the way ours is set up is in between the field that we all end up coming in on and like kind of our clubhouse area, there's kind of 4 quadrants. And so for a couple of years, I would go and sign 8 to 10 of them in one quadrant, and then I would kind of try and rotate it. And I don't think it makes any difference. I don't think it makes anyone feel better, but that's how I kind of tried to do it. This year, I kind of signed in one spot or in 2 of the quadrants, but I would look for a kid in each one of those and go there, sign 5 or 8, and then head in. So everyone kind of has their own system or how they want to do it. But, I think the tough thing is like all of us want to be the guy that signs the ball for the kid, right? Yeah. We all were that kid. We all went to a game or whatever and didn't get an autograph from the player that we really wanted. And, it kind of is what it is. I think there's some realities that kind of people don't know about and schedules and this and that and whatever. But I've kind of asked, I don't know how plausible it is, but I've asked for like a 12 and under section that like only kids could be at. But if you say that in a clubhouse, what's sad about it really and what makes it tough and listen, like one of the coolest things ever in the world is kids like wanting you to sign a baseball for that. Like it's one of the coolest things ever. the thing that diminishes that or makes it harder for guys to do it is the autograph seeking adult male.
And the binder that you see at every minor league city, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, especially I think especially when you're a young player, you just got like a card deal and you're signing all these amounts of cards. And I think there's this real like it doesn't really matter that much right now for me, but when you're younger and you're making like minor league money, and especially a guy who maybe didn't get a bunch of money out of the draft, has become a big time prospect, this Topps deal is probably their largest source of income if they're not in the big leagues, right? And I feel like you think if I sign 50 autographs for these autograph book guys, like it's such a first worldy thing, but like the value of my autograph might go down and I might not make as much money signing cards, which right now is like 4xing my income for the year.
Yeah.
So there's just these weird, like, kind of caveats to it. The other thing is, I've told people, like, I wish we just had a kids thing. And they'll be like, yeah, they'll just pay kids to go in there too, which is so weird. Like, I don't really know if there's a great solution to it, but I will say, guys saying yes or no to autographs, there's a lot more like thought behind it than I think people might think. There's also a lot more want to do it, but we want to do it the right way. And kind of the landscape of how that all occurs makes it very difficult.
Did you ever feel any pressure because of this exact thing where, again, you could be signing autographs 6 days a week, and then the one day that you don't is when that video gets taken. Oh, Walker Buehler doesn't sign autographs. Like in the early parts of your career, did you ever have the pressure of just always feeling like you need to sign more? Even when you do your quadrants, right? There's always going to be another kid or there's always going to be another person. Did you feel that pressure? And did it take some time to just finally realize like, hey, I can do my best and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, in everything, right? If you create some sort of rule or some sort of self-discipline to it, you can kind of stick to it a little bit easier. And for me, I think signing a bunch of them when I'm young and then there still being a certain amount of people that are still yelling at you and still mad or whatever, like then you say, well, I'll just make that the rule. And so I don't feel bad about it. I think you still feel really bad for the kid that possibly came there to try and get your autograph that happened to be in the wrong quadrant. But, I think that is one thing that we could probably do better as a game is try and set up some sort of pipeline's not the right word, but some sort of thing that allows us to kind of do that kind of thing a lot more freely. And I think at least as a young player, Fan Fest was like a great thing for that. I know our Fan Fest was free for a long time, and it's obviously not now, but
you got 35,000 people out there.
Yeah, but when you're young and you're a prospect, there's a lot of times you get sat at a table and there's a line and whatnot. And, I think largely is a lot more affordable than going to like a card show or something like that, or a game or whatever. So I always thought Fan Fest was kind of a non-negotiable in terms of like, you're going to sit there and sign everything. And that's a good way for that to happen. But, you see it in the minor leagues. They'll bring up some guys to the concourse before the game and get guys their MVP and stuff like that. So I think there's definitely some accessibility to it, but I wish it was easier, and I wish you could, we all wish we could make every kid like happy and sign his autograph, but we're also there working and we're also there trying to like go get better and get ready. So it's a tough situation.
Guy that did just sign a couple of autographs is someone that Aram got to connect with last week in Dalton Rushing, right?
Oh yeah. And I actually meant to ask you about Rushing because met him at an eBay signing event, and that was a nice check for him, I'm sure. And we were promoting that and as partners with eBay. But he sat down, did a little bit of an interview with us for our prospect show, the call up, and I'd mentioned after we did the interview, oh, hey, by the way, we do stuff with Walker. He's like, oh, he's been looking awesome in the bullpens. I'm like, well, he undersells it to us, but he said, oh, the stuff's been looking awesome. But I wanted to ask you about Rushing because, of course, he's been an offensive-minded guy. At Louisville, he didn't catch as much. He's one of the best prospects in the Dodgers system, but it was really cool to hear him talk about how beneficial it's been to him to be able to catch somebody like yourself, catch somebody like Yamamoto, catch somebody like Glasnow, and just learn. What have you seen? I know it's not a game setting. He's not calling a game and things like that, but you're still working with, some of the best pitchers in the game.
Right.
What have you seen from a young rushing, being able to work with you guys? And how do you think that defensive side of things and just working with pitchers in general has been coming along for him?
Yeah, I think first off, we've heard a lot about the bat, and I know he tore up the low level minor leagues, and now coming to big league camp, and I assume he's going to get kind of pushed a little bit more. Obviously, our catching situation is pretty good, but I think very similar mold as Will. Just I knew Will growing up. We're both from Kentucky, and he was an infielder who kind of figured out catching in college, and similar thing for Dalton. Obviously, both at Louisville, which I guess you could call kind of catcher U right now with those two and Henry Davis. So, but yeah, I mean, I think he does a lot of things. I think he's emulated a lot off of how Will acts and throw. Even their mannerisms are pretty similar. So, I think he's been doing a great job. Obviously, everyone wants catchers that can hit, and he definitely checks that box. Now it's about being the catcher as well. And I think one of the things that I learned really early on, I think you learn from experienced guys or really good guys. Like for me with Clayton, it was understanding how much of a plan he had in his bullpen and how particular he was on certain things, or what target sets he liked and what he wanted to see. And I think I learned that through him, watching him throw bullpens, and these catchers obviously being kind of immersed in that and involved in that. It is the way that they learn that kind of stuff. For me, I really like the catcher to sit right on the plate in my bullpen because I want to see where the ball crosses, right? I don't really care where he catches it. Like we largely know, like, if it was a strike or not. It's not really about that at that point. Like for me, I want to see exactly the kind of action and shape, and this field correlates to this location where the ball will be hit. So that movement up is something that guys that have caught me a lot just do because they know that's how I want to do it. But I think if you like unpack that or reverse engineer it, right? Like I move him up, he catches everything. Then he asks me why I do that. And then I explain to him like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I want it on this play. I want, in this spot, whatever. And I think maybe that helps them learn like, oh, there's a lot that goes into this more than just fastball, slider, whatever, right? And so, I don't know if he learned that catching me or whatever, but every guy has a different goal or different plan for these bullpens, and kind of understanding that every guy is a little bit different, I think leads to them really understanding what fingers to call and the comfort level we have with certain things, and helps. Obviously catching bullpens helps them catch us in the games, but if you can get through that next layer of things, that's where the being on the same page with what to throw, I think really starts to grow.
I'm curious if there are maybe other young guys that are impressing you now in a way that maybe they weren't last year, or like obviously you'd be impressed by them last year, but they've taken a step up. I wanted to pull Gavin Stone's numbers up because he's throwing the crap out of the ball right now. 9 2/3, 9 punch outs, 1 walk, and just 1 run against him. I'm thinking about a guy you mentioned before we hopped on. Kyle Hurt looked great in Seoul last night. I know you threw Michael Grove on your Instagram story. Are there guys that are jumping out to you that you think took a big step up this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle Hurt came up and had a successful debut, right? And it was kind of the one stint, whatever. So it was kind of just another look at him. And obviously I wasn't there, so I hadn't seen it really in person a lot. I think he's got a chance to be pretty good. Grove obviously looked good last night. We've seen kind of these really good flashes out of him, and I think for him, it's just going to be kind of putting it all together. It's a really good slider. He can really spin the ball. It's just trying to find a way to get guys kind of a little bit more off balance, which he did last night. So, I think pitching wise, Gavin Stone is probably the big one. I'm curious to see how it translates, just because he was really good last spring too. Like, the changeup was all over Instagram and he was throwing 98
Yeah.
and so I know he's added kind of a cutter slider, which I think will really help him. And the changeup is so good. It's just even in the big leagues when you have a 65 or 70 or whatever grade changeup, like if you can't make the ball go the other way, they're just really good. Like the hitters we face are really good. And I know he talked publicly about some tipping or something that he thought he had going on as well. And he's just I think I'll probably be partial to him and Grove just because they're both pretty similar. Body style, the way they throw is pretty close to how I try and do things. So those two guys I'm excited to watch. And obviously I like Kyle and like a lot what he can do with the ball. It's just he does some things way differently than I do. And so there's not much I can really help him with. Gavin, I feel like, oh, that delivery, I kind of understand it. I know what that thing feels like that you're trying to do, or when you misfire this ball this way, how that's happening. And so I think it's just a little bit more personal, but obviously all three of those guys are really impressive. I think from the hitting side, I think Andy Pies has been somebody that, major shoulder surgery and comes back and I think it's his second big league camp, but his first one really healthy and hit a bunch of homers and played really well. So I think that's a huge positive for him. And I know he will feel better knowing that he got his feet wet after this surgery and against the best in the world and was able to hold up.
Did you ever have any instances of tipping pitches throughout like your career at any point? And is that something that you may like overthink sometimes? Like I'd be almost paranoid if I'm tipping at all. Like how do you almost know maybe it's just my stuff isn't there today versus maybe I'm tipping? And have you ever had an instance of that throughout your career?
Yeah, I think the TrackMan is a big the numbers that we get and all the data that we analyze now. Like if your stuff is really bad and you get hit, it's largely you don't go to tipping, but it's the days that your stuff is really good, you feel good, and then things don't go great. Sometimes when guys tipping, there's just some odd stuff that happens. It's kind of like this weird domino. If they know what's coming, there's just some weird things that happen, right? Every guy hits the ball to the right hole just because, oh, it's a changeup and I need to move this way, and they stay on a pitch that maybe they shouldn't. We thought I was tipping a little bit my rookie year. I was throwing a spiked breaking ball, and I used to come up like in the stretch, and I would do like this down thing. I know a few guys, D-May does it. Gonsolin does it where we kind of would hunch and then come back, and mine would get really slow on the breaking ball because I was hunting for the grip. While the other one, like if I had heater and I went to heater, it was pretty quick. And so it can be little stuff like that. We had some really, really experienced players my rookie year who really were careful and concerned about it, not only trying to work on finding anything we can on the people we play, but also double checking our guys. And so we got that one fixed up pretty good. I think it was one game.
So I was going to ask you, who keys you in on that? Is it a guy in your dugout? Is it somebody like Pryor? Like, is Pryor going to see it and say, Mark Pryor, the pitching coach, is he going to see that and, say, hey, watch out for this? Or could it be a guy like Kike Hernandez who says, hey, man, like, I see you might be doing this. What's going on internally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's kind of an organizational thing. Like if the guy tips, it's bad for the whole organization. Like,
right.
Yeah. So everyone's kind of clued into it. I think we watch it in bullpens. There's certain tips that can come out in bullpens. There's certain tips that you can see elsewhere. I know in some live BPs we've had suspicions that there's a tip, right? And so what you do is you kind of tell a veteran guy that we think we have something, and let us know if you can see it. Let us know if you could attack that, right? And so after that live BP or whatever, you'll kind of have a clear picture of can a hitter who has probably operated with tips before use what we're seeing as a verifiable tip and a usable tip. So it's kind of a super layered thing, but the simplest ones are out of the glove at second and all of that. And I think in the past 5 or 6 years, kind of the secrecy of signs has the landscape of that has gotten a lot more defined, and knowing that like, hey, this can't happen, you can't do this, we're not taking a risk.
Right.
So I think everyone's just a little bit more clued in.
Gotcha.
You haven't necessarily pitched a ton since PitchCom implementation, right? Because I was trying to, it's one of those
Nope.
things where you could convince me that came into the game 3 years ago. You could also convince me it came into the game a year ago. But is
Yeah.
that something that you've gotten many reps in with at all? Like, is that something that you try to, like, maybe as you throw live, start to use? Or
And like, do you need reps? Like,
yeah,
is
does
that
that
something?
even matter? I guess there's a better
Um,
question too.
Right.
I don't know if you necessarily need reps. I think doing that, I think the timer is more
Yeah.
of a differentiator for me than the pitch com, right? I throw a lot of different pitches, and um, I don't shake much unless I'm like really convicted, and so I'm usually not really convicted in like my first couple options, right? So then you start, I just don't throw many change ups. So if I'm really want to throw a change up, like sometimes it takes a few shakes to get there,
Shake you like
right?
5 times.
It's like, no, that
Uh,
one.
but the timing thing really changes that, right? And so I think, I think the pitch com is fine. I think most people have figured out how to operate on it. I think I largely will still use fingers without anybody on first or second. First, I still don't really know yet, but the man on second, you'll use it. I think at some point it's silly to not. Um, More for the timing of it, because the disguise anything takes time, and you're not allowing yourself to shake really. I still am firmly in the camp of the pitch com is something that leveled a playing field that didn't need to be leveled. I think pitchers who use sign systems that they're comfortable with, their catcher is comfortable with, and that can't be picked should be rewarded in that security of it, right? If I can operate with something that you can't handle mentally for you to operate with, that should be an advantage for me. And so I'm still kind of anti pitch com, but it is the world that we're kind of in, and I think with the timer, like it's hard to say that the stuff I used to do would still be uh, really usable, maybe just from a timing perspective. So, I think we just kind of adapt and move forward.
Got a couple more things for you. One, you baseball related, one, you not baseball related. But before that, Tyler Glasnow gets the ball on opening day, 6 a.m.
Yep.
Eastern on Wednesday. Give us the 4-1-1 on the opening day starter for the LA Dodgers. It's going to be Glasnow and Darvish on Wednesday morning. What have you seen from your new teammate?
Yeah. I think we obviously have familiarity with him, and the whole league kind of understands when he's healthy and on the mound, he's as dominant as anyone. It's 3 pitches and it's firm, and it's hard to hit, and all these things. I wouldn't say he's super crafty. It's not like he's doing all these different things, but he's 6'7", he throws this ball hard, and he throws it downhill, and it kind of cuts, which is unusual, and he's developed that slider. So, for a while it's kind of a 2 pitch guy, and to be super successful like he was when he's playing with 2 pitches as a starter is difficult to do. So I think that is a pretty good um, benchmark of how dominant he can be, especially now he's got this third one. So, I know all we're really focused on with him is keeping him healthy and keeping him out there. Our medical staff does a great job, and I think, my prediction is that he'll probably have the most innings he's ever thrown in his career, and have a great year for us.
If you can pinpoint, you hit on a few different things that make him so good, but one or two things that, for the casual fan or just someone that maybe doesn't totally understand, other than he's big and throws hard, like what makes him so dominant as a pitcher and get some of the uglier swings you're going to see?
Yeah, obviously the fastball, as I said, has that cut, which is unusual, especially at that velocity. It's pretty unusual. The curveball, like the size versus the speed, it is unusually big for how hard he can throw it. The cutting of the heater, right? If that ball is on a certain axis, the disguise of the slider is easier to do, right? Because if it's already going that way, this one, they look more similar. And so kind of his barrier for entry to throw like an elite slider is a lot lower.
Yeah.
And he obviously can spin the ball where he's been fastball curveball only for a long time. And so, you're talking about three things that largely spin the same and act drastically different. And it's just hard. And especially when, even if you think it's a heater and it's going to be a heater and it is a heater, it's still 98, 99, 100 with cut. And it's just not the one that every hitter wants on 2-0 that's in the middle, because it's just not the same. And he's big, gets out there far, so it plays up, and it's just there's just a lot of really good things that he does kind of inherently.
All right, Dodger fans are dying to know, what do the next 2 months look like for Mr. Walker Buehler?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in live BPs. I think once the minor league season gets going, I'll go on rehab at some point, and we'll move from there. Obviously, we've seen how these seasons go in terms of guys getting hurt early in years and things like that, and whatever need they have at the big league level, that there's a chance that I could have to go a little bit sooner than planned. I don't want to kind of reveal our schedule, right? But
Yeah.
no, I throw live to hitters again on Tuesday, and I'll kind of stay on 6 days. I think for a month or so, and kind of see where we're at. But my last one went well. I threw 3 innings. I was up to 97, which was pretty good for me.
Yes, man.
We've got all these guys throwing a million these days, but
yeah, 97 chump change. You're right.
I don't know if I was even throwing 97 and 22. So no, it's a step forward. Now it's just kind of getting the tissue tolerance and the bounce back. And largely we talked about that last fall when I went on rehab. It was less about what was happening out of my hand and more about how you recovered. And that's improving. So things are looking good.
Only 19 pitches, 97 miles per hour and above in 2022. So seems like you're right there. You talk about tissue tolerance. What's some of the other things that you're starting to notice about the way maybe your body's bouncing back, or the way your body's feeling as you're hitting your stride here? Obviously, the velocity is one side of it, but is there anything else that you've noticed? It's just like, oh wow, that feels nice. Like, oh, that feels a lot different. I'm definitely getting there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little more like pop in the body, right? And I think the velo is the first indicator of that. I think, secondly, you keep increasing innings, right? So it was my third live. I threw 3 innings. I threw 1, then 2, then 3. And there's a point where, like, you go from 1 to 2, you get more sore. And for me, it was from 2 to 3 was largely the same. And so the plan is now, or the hope is now, I'll throw 3+ now. So I won't throw 4 full, but I'll get up a 4th time. And so the hope is that you feel the same as you did, or a little bit better than when you threw 3, right? There's kind of this bell curve to it. And then you get into like kind of normal in-season feeling. And so hopefully in, this one or the next one, you'll get to that, like, oh, I felt good relative to the last one. And that's when you're kind of off to the races.
Does that get you giddy when you have, like, I don't want to call it a breakthrough, but like, does that kind of fire you up internally when it's like, I feel good now doing something that, like, I didn't necessarily feel good doing, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think, everybody talks about this rehab throwing and all of this, but like, I don't think people really comprehend like how much you don't want to throw a baseball sometimes during rehab, and like the certain feelings that you have and all the shit you have to do to get your arm to a place that you even know you can throw without it hurting, let alone like actually want to do it. And I think as you kind of clip these milestones, you kind of get that like enjoyment to it back a little bit. That like, hey dad, want to go play catch feeling that's just not always there, especially, in this thing where you can make 30, 33 starts in a season, and going to play catch every day, it just gets it. When you don't feel good, it's not fun, right? And you need to be really good at this thing. You're supposed to be one of the best 50 people in the world at doing this one thing, and you don't even want to go do it. And so finding that kind of want to go play catch, and hey, I want to try this thing today, and I know there'll be a base level of me feeling good enough that like I can try it and know if it's going to work or not. It's not going to be my arm wasn't letting me do it today. I think it's such a paradigm shift, and yeah, it feels good, and it makes you walk into the clubhouse and say like, motherfuckers, I'm back, right?
Yeah.
But then the next day you're super sore and you're like, I might not be back yet, but I was yesterday for a second, and so yeah, it's this teeter tottering thing, and you can't really take staking too much, day to day, but you're just trying to get like a good week and a half trend, and then start feeling better about yourself.
Is it more, and especially going into like when you're going to start throwing in rehab games and things like that, is it more about the up downs? And for those listening who might not know, that's just like, again, each inning you throw, you're
Yep.
up and then you sit on the bench. So then you got to get back up again. And that obviously can be some of the more difficult ways to get back from injury. Is it more about managing the up downs, or is it more about managing the pitch count as you work back from it and get into these rehab starts and keep going?
Yeah, before this surgery, the up down thing in spring training was always the tough thing for me. I would throw, and then when you start throwing those warm up pitches for the next inning, that thing's just tighter than you want it to be. It doesn't feel good. It felt like it didn't matter if I threw 100 pitches straight. It would be the warm up that would bug it. I haven't had much problem with the up down this kind of go around. So, I think the day that I'm pitching, or kind of the performance day, I haven't had much issue. It's just, you just get sore in places that you haven't been sore in a long time. And the shoulder, like my shoulder feels good. I just used to never really get sore at all. And I haven't thrown balls at this kind of intensity in 2 or 3 years. And, it takes a while for the elbow to kind of figure it out. And then it takes some time for the shoulder to do it too. But you're just trying to avoid actually hurting or damaging anything. And so far so good on that. So yeah, your level of soreness is just higher. And the big negative on that is like, you can't get the same catch in, you don't get to the same spot, physically and mentally, in terms of, I threw in between starts, I threw 100 balls hard, right? Like, you're trying to find this whatever magic number it is, and that workload in between starts is so important. And soreness is kind of the thing that can take you out of that a little bit.
All right, before we let you go, your Commodores, I don't think won 10 games this year on the men's basketball side, but let's pivot to Kentucky, 3 seed in the South.
Yep.
Houston's the 1 seed, Marquette's the 2,
Yep.
Duke's the 4.
Yep.
Are the Cats national champs or what?
I definitely think they're probably the favorite of the 3 seeds to really go deep. Everything I've seen is that side of the bracket is a little bit less than some of the other regions. I think Cats have kind of played with everyone, have some weird losses, but as talented as anyone. So I'm excited to watch them. We'll see what happens.
Or if they go to the Final Four, would that be during the baseball season already?
That would be during the baseball season, and that would be Phoenix.
Yeah,
Wow.
That's why I was going to ask, because I was like, if they go to the Final Four, are you sending it to that? But
That's April 8th. I don't know. It depends on your timeline. You might still be in Phoenix. No.
I won't be.
Hell yeah.
All right, Walker, you are the man. And of course, we will talk to you, I think, in a week, maybe 2, but we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.